Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Students across the Grossmont Union High School District walked out of class today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. They did it to protest potential layoffs approved by the school board to cut costs. KPBS video journalist Matthew Bowler was at district headquarters.
Chanting and waving homemade signs, students at Grossmont High School walked out of class protesting potential layoffs in the district.
And our school is not going to stand for one.
That's Grossmont High senior Maggie Kelly. She's one of the student leaders who organized this walkout. Students left the high school campus and walked next door to district headquarters. That's when a school vice principal told KPBS to leave. But that didn't stop students.
It's important to do the math. There is a $2.4 million deficit projected for the district for the end of this school year. Even if every single staff member being cut was paid a minimum teacher salary of $40,000 a year, there would be money left over after clearing the deficit with these 61 cuts.
The Grossmont Union High School District School Board voted 4-1 to eliminate librarian, teacher, and other staff positions to help close a $2.4 million budget deficit. Grossmont High School psychologist Katie Abruzzo says the impact is significant.
At Grossmont High School, there are 2 counselors, assistant principal, and a librarian that are directly affected. There are some new teachers too that are directly affected. And then as a department, the school psychology department, we are losing about 15% of our staff for the school psychology department as well.
Acting Superintendent Sandra Hueso wrote in a letter to the board that the budget cuts are needed to maintain the district's long-term financial stability. Hueso wrote, "Reserves are a one-time resource intended for one-time challenges. This is not that." The board is meeting at 6 p.m. tonight. The district is required to issue final layoff notices by May 15th. Matthew Bowler, KPBS News.
The County Board of Supervisors today voted to update its unsafe camping ordinance to prevent wildfires caused by homeless encampments. KPBS reporter Alexander Wen says Supervisor Joel Anderson brought the issue up because of backcountry fires caused by human hands.
You smell the smoke, you see the flames.
Lakeside resident Kathy Castle lost her home in the Cedar Fire in 2003. She says that experience still haunts her.
If we see something that we think that has potential, we start warning everybody.
Supervisor Joe Anderson says this is why he brought this issue up, especially in the county's unincorporated and rural areas. Anderson says the area is prone to wildfire because of the open space and the prevalent dry brush. He cited a recent San Diego Union Tribune report that nearly 1 in 5 fires in San Diego were likely started in or near homeless encampments.
We're going to lose citizens, and we're going to lose a lot of homes, and that's wrong. We can prevent this.
Anderson says this isn't about punishing homelessness, it's about fire safety.
In 2003, my old Senate district lost 2,000 homes. 2 people died in their vehicles trying to flee the fires, and the fires caught up.
The county is in the process of updating its own unsafe camping ordinance. The move comes after the Supreme Court decided a case allowing local governments to enforce camping bans, regardless if shelters are available. Anderson is asking the draft to include provisions addressing the threat of fires from homeless encampments. Last month, the board voted 4-0 to advance Supervisor Jim Desmond's proposal to clear homeless encampments during red flag warnings. In the end, the board voted to add provisions related to fire risk, add protections in specific areas such as open spaces, and when there are no fire threats, deputies will give 72 hours notice to clear out encampments and offer shelter before enforcement.
I think we do have a moral obligation to, before we put handcuffs on somebody, to say, we have a place for you to go. And because that is added as an Amendment D, I'm okay with supporting this, provided that it's coming back and I can have another look at it.
The updated ban will return to the board for a second reading in 60 days. Live in the newsroom, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
And also at the Board of Supervisors meeting today, the failure of an effort to repeal a policy on immigration enforcement. The policy limits local agencies and what they can do to help immigration officials. It was passed late last year when Nora Vargas led the board. As part of our coverage of the election to replace her, we asked the District 1 candidates where they stand on the policy.
I would expand it to make sure that it's not just a symbolic gesture or non-implementable policy such as the one that was passed, where legally the county board cannot tell the sheriff how to enforce the law because that's their constitutional and statutorily given right as an elected official.
From a humanitarian perspective, I advocate for the rights of everyone in our county and advocate for their protections. So I will work alongside those federal entities so long as they are respecting, the legal protections of those who are residing here.
I've been on the record as saying that I do not support it. The state of California already has laws in place that basically stipulate that if a person is wanted for murder or rape, that they will be essentially sent over to ICE.
I think that comes out of state law, but I would definitely work to do everything we could to get law enforcement to work with the Border Patrol and with the other federal authorities in order to make sure, especially in the area where you get criminal that has been caught and captured, you need to get them out of the country or in jail somewhere. We need to get them off our streets. We do not want these criminals out there on our streets.
I oppose being a sanctuary county. Our immigrant community is a very, very important community to us. And you, right now, by being a sanctuary county, when somebody who is a violent predator, who has raped, murdered, or assaulted somebody, instead of getting them deported, you're putting them back into the immigrant community, where the immigrant community will be the victims of it. We need to keep our immigrant community safe and protect them.
I think we need to have a more humane approach to having people that are in this community that are obeying the law, that are being good citizens, that are not hurting others. And those that do, well, they need to have consequences enacted.
My heart is always going to be with the people that are looking at a better life for them and their family. My heart is always there, but as an elected official, I also have to be mindful that, we have many issues that we have to address. And first and foremost, our community is always looking to feel safe in their home, right? I'm not the type of person that wants to defund the police. Chula Vista is the safest incorporated city in the county. We have an excellent police force, and we're very proud of that.
And we have everything you need to know about the special election online. Check out the Voter Hub at kpbs.org. You can find answers to commonly asked questions, including, how do I know if I live in District 1? And take a quiz to see how the candidates align with you on important issues. The San Diego County Sheriff's Office is now addressing a controversial 2023 transfer of a jail inmate to Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis has the details.
The Sheriff's Office is asserting that the transfer of an undocumented man to ICE custody was legal under one of California's sanctuary laws. ACLU lawyers and other advocates have publicly flagged this case as a possible violation of state law for nearly a year. It involves a man with a 21-year-old conviction for assault with a deadly weapon. The Sheriff's Office had not responded to those questions about this case until last Friday, after a KPBS story on the issue. The response from a sheriff spokesperson cited a specific section of the law to justify the legality of the transfer. That section says that a transfer can occur when, quote, an individual has been convicted of a felony punishable by imprisonment in the state prison system. The sheriff's office had not previously cited that section of the law in public forums relating to the sanctuary law, and it conflicts with another section of the same law. That section creates a time frame for when someone with specific convictions can be transferred. It says transfers can occur if, quote, the individual has been convicted within the past 5 years of a misdemeanor or has been convicted within the past 15 years of a felony. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
Ukraine has agreed to a proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. Top Trump administration officials met with senior Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia. Today's talks took place less than 2 weeks after the explosive Oval Office meeting between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Michael Yoshida reports from the White House with the latest.
The United States announced Tuesday that it would immediately lift the pause on intelligence sharing and military aid to Ukraine following a high-stakes meeting. That meeting happening as the relationship between Washington and Kyiv was at its lowest point since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago.
Today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict. Hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes to peace. The ball's now in their court.
Heading into Tuesday's talks, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the U.S. was in listening mode, wanting more details on Kyiv's position and what concessions Ukraine would be willing to make to strike a peace deal with Russia. Notably absent from the meetings in Saudi Arabia, President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who less than 2 weeks ago had a disastrous meeting in the Oval Office. A key sticking point has been security guarantees, with Ukraine saying any peace deal must include the guarantees because Russia has a history of breaking agreements that don't include them. Many Western allies of Ukraine have backed this point, but so far the Trump administration has refused to make any concrete commitments. President Trump has also suggested Ukraine might need to give up some of its territory. Russian forces currently occupy around 20% of Ukraine, up from the roughly 7% Moscow controlled before its invasion in 2022. At the White House, I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
The federal agency investigating the deadly airplane crash in January warns of possible future disasters at the Washington, D.C. airport where the crash occurred without new restrictions. Karen Kafa has details.
The National Transportation Safety Board warned of the potential for future mid-air collisions along helicopter routes near Washington's Reagan National Airport.
Let me repeat that. They pose an intolerable risk to aviation safety.
NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy said the agency recommends that the FAA bar helicopters from a 4-mile stretch over the Potomac River when flights are landing on runway 33. That's the runway American Eagle Flight 5342 was approaching when it collided with an Army helicopter on the night of Wednesday, January 29th, leaving 67 people dead. As part of its investigation, the NTSB uncovered data on thousands of near misses at the Washington airport in recent years.
It also makes me feel incredibly devastated for families that are grieving because they lost loved ones. It shouldn't take a tragedy like this to occur. Unfortunately, one did.
Homendy said their investigation may look at the numbers on near misses at other U.S. airports. And they're still collecting facts on whether more air traffic control staffing could have prevented the collision. She also expressed confidence in the nation's overall aviation safety.
I say often that your biggest risk is in your personal vehicle when you're going to and from the airport. Aviation is safe.
After the fact-finding phase, the NTSB will analyze what it's learned about the January crash before issuing a final report and determining probable cause. In Washington, Karen Kafa, KPBS News.
On March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says 5 years later, a crucial question remains. How prepared is San Diego for the next pandemic?
The COVID-19 pandemic tested the limits of San Diego's healthcare system. To date, it has claimed 6,653 lives.
This was a generational, once-in-a-lifetime event.
In March 2020, Dr. Juan Tovar was working in the emergency room at Scripps Mercy Hospital, Chula Vista.
So nothing that we could have done would have been able to prepare us 100% for it. But I'd like to think that we were as prepared as we could be.
Hospitals had to improvise fast.
We started treating patients out of rooms that were not supposed to be treatment rooms, but we had to because we needed the space. So we created examination rooms out of cubbies. We treated patients outside. We set up 2 tents, we set up a trailer.
But the strain wasn't just logistical, it was emotional.
We saw patients' family members looking through windows at their family members dying. We had to hold their hands as they're dying because they were alone.
That trauma led Scripps and other hospitals to create peer support groups to help staff cope. Tovar's emergency room colleague, Dr. James Cunningham, says that uncertainty in the early days made the crisis even harder.
I think the most challenging part was the unknown and the anticipation. So we started to prepare as best we could, getting ready, expecting that tidal wave of patients.
Instead of a sudden surge, Cunningham says it was more of a slow rising tide of critically ill patients.
We didn't realize as well that people would get sick but stay sick for weeks. And most of the time a hospital is set up to take care of somebody in an acute illness for a few days.
Adding to the pressure, San Diego hospitals weren't just treating local patients.
In Baja California, there's over 400,000 American citizens who live there, and so a lot of those people cross the border to seek care here.
Dr. Ghazala Sharif is Scripps' chief medical officer. She says the experience forced hospitals to rethink patient flow.
So we have personally leased some beds with skilled nursing facilities so that if there's an influx of patients, we have a place to discharge patients to, because it's not just people coming in the front door, it's how do we get them out of the hospital to keep the flow going.
Public health experts are also working to catch the next outbreak early. At UC San Diego, researchers are leading a 5-year CDC-funded pandemic preparedness project aimed at detecting new viruses before they overwhelm hospitals. Marva Seifert is leading the study's clinical component.
So instead of just seeing when people are sick enough to go to the hospital, this program will allow us to know what's actually circulating in the community.
She says real-time data could help detect new virus strains before they spread.
So then we're better prepared when something changes, when there's a new variant or a new strain of COVID or flu that pops up.
Sharif says the data can also help hospitals predict surges.
Predictive analytics are really helpful, not just looking at the pandemic itself, but also helping us with staffing models. So we were able to staff up when we needed to in advance instead of just waiting for the storm to hit.
She says communication between hospitals and the county has also improved.
We have a better relationship, closer relationship with the county than we did before. And we know who to call, when we need something.
But even as hospitals are better prepared, the personal impact of the virus remains a challenge. Psychiatrist Dr. Alan Lee is still experiencing the effects of long COVID. Constant fatigue forced him to stop working.
When you're sick and you're tired and then you're trying to access treatment, that's hard enough. And then this is a new illness. The story is being written as we go.
Lee says the biggest problem isn't just the illness, it's the lack of recognition.
Because without awareness, people forget, and then there's no family and friend support, which these patients need. There's no funding, which is the fuel for the research and the treatment that's needed.
Until that treatment is found, Lee says he'll continue to try anything his doctor suggests to manage his symptoms. Back at Scripps Chula Vista, Dr. Juan Tovar is optimistic about the county's future emergency response.
It feels like we're more of a community now than we were previously. It feels to me like we have something special in San Diego, and we came out of this very messed up disease state, this period, and now we're doing much better for it.
Experts agree that San Diego is in a better position than it was 5 years ago. But predicting the next pandemic remains the biggest challenge. For now, hospitals and researchers are watching potential threats closely, hoping their work will give us a head start next time. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
As measles cases in Texas and New Mexico continue to rise, vaccine rates nationwide are falling. And that is according to CDC data. Lee Waldman spoke to healthcare professionals who are concerned about this trend.
5 years ago today, COVID-19 was declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization. Healthcare professionals we spoke to warn that the measles is much more contagious than COVID. They fear that if immunization rates against the measles continues to drop, we could have a big problem on our hands.
The emergence of measles needs to bother more people than it is bothering nationally right now.
Though they're states away, Dr. Jim McDonald with the New York State Department of Health is very concerned about the measles outbreak in West Texas and New Mexico.
Measles is not a harmless childhood infection. You know, if you look at the Texas outbreak in particular, a little over 1 in 5 people are ending up in a hospital.
Donald points to falling immunization rates as the reason behind the outbreaks. CDC data found vaccination coverage among kindergartners across the U.S. dropped to 92.7% for measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine during the 2023 to 24 school year.
When vaccine rates erode, and they have eroded to the point where many jurisdictions now have vaccine rates that are well less than 95%, which is what's required to prevent measles, we're starting to see measles come back.
Dr. Paul Offit says there's an increase in vaccine skepticism and a rejection of them after the COVID-19 vaccines.
I do worry that as immunization rates continue to erode, that children will once again suffer.
CDC says measles has a mortality rate of 1 to 3 per 1,000 cases in children. With 2 deaths confirmed from the current outbreak, Offit fears the current number of cases is much higher than currently reported.
This is a highly contagious virus, and I don't think people realize how sick it can make you.
Both doctors we spoke to pointed to the fact that measles was eradicated in the U.S. in 2000 because of the MMR vaccine. Health departments in both Texas and New Mexico are offering this vaccine to people for free. In New York, I'm Lee Waldman.
San Diego is seeing its first round of wet weather this week. There's still time, though, to prepare before the second round hits. First, make sure to pick up any trash or debris near storm drains and street gutters near your home. Then turn off irrigation systems to save water and to minimize any runoff. Know a safe route into and out of your home in case of flooding. You can also pick up some sandbags for free at 11 recreation centers across the county.
It's important because the flood is going to cause a lot of damage. If we can get ahead of it and do some temporary measures while you wait to get those permanent fixes in place, you can, lower your damage costs and just not have to worry about having the damage and destruction. No one likes a flood, and no one likes to have to recoup from a flood.
There is a limit of 10 bags per household or business. Some sites only provide bags, others provide sand and bags. So be sure to check what is available at each center. You can find a full list on our website, kpbs.org, and remember to bring a shovel.
Well, we've been seeing the rain on this Tuesday, and another storm is coming really close behind this first one. We will see some snow to the mountains, not significant snow. That's going to be a little bit further to our north, and temperatures are going to bounce around a little bit. So let's start with what to expect for tonight. Temperatures getting down into the upper 40s, mid 50s for San Diego, and then 30 is our low there in Mount Laguna. Tomorrow, some of us will be seeing the sunshine in Borrego Springs, but many of us will be seeing the rainfall. Temperatures getting to the mid 60s in Oceanside, San Diego, and up to the 70s there in Borrego Springs. Now, let's break down exactly what to expect with the rain. So as we go through the overnight hours, we're kind of seeing what's left of the Tuesday system starting to move inland. Then we have another system that comes in just after the first one, overnight into Wednesday, but it really starts further to the north. It doesn't get down to Southern California until we go a little bit throughout the day. We see some sprinkles, 7 p.m. It's really Thursday that we see a little bit more of the rainfall into Southern California. Now, this is the overall footprint snapshot of the storm. We will get rain, not just showers, but how much rain are we expecting? Anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch is what we're expecting for San Diego and areas closer to the coast here. We'll see some heavier precipitation totals as we get towards the mountains. We will see some snow, more of a mix as we get closer to San Diego here. The significant snow, we're seeing feet of snow, that's up into the Sierra. Here's what to expect as far as the rainfall. You can see the more accumulative rainfall, 1 to 2 inches. That's a little bit further inland into our higher elevations. We do have a flood watch in effect, though, for everyone highlighted in green here. This goes through Thursday afternoon. Taking a look at your 5-day outlook for the coast, temperatures bounce around from the 60s to to the 50s and back up to the 60s. Further inland, it's a similar story. We're in the mid-60s. Then Thursday, we're in the mid-50s. Quite the drop there. Several days of showers. Mountain forecast, your 5-day outlook. We do turn to ice come Friday with those temperatures dropping down into the 30s with lows below freezing. And your desert 5-day outlook, we're in the 70s. We drop down to the 50s, a pretty stark drop, and then we start to warm our way back up. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Anna Azalian.
And before we get to our last story, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Democratic attorneys general in 19 states and the District of Columbia sued the Trump administration over its mass firing of federal workers. NPR's A. Martinez talks to Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays. And it's Wellness Wednesday on KPBS Midday Edition. What everyone needs to know about colorectal cancer screenings. A new, one-of-a-kind, immersive experience comes to SeaWorld this weekend. The Jewels of the Sea jellyfish exhibit officially opens this Saturday. SeaWorld says it will provide guests opportunities to get an up-close look at different species of jellyfish and learn about them and even touch them. Well, it features 3 galleries and guests can enjoy interactive habitats in the realm of jellies. The Jellyfish Passage boasts one of the tallest jellyfish aquariums in the country, and it all ends with the Medusa Gallery, which uses vibrant LED lights to immerse visitors in ocean depths, bioluminescence, and a kaleidoscope of jellyfish. Very, very cool. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.